Hey folks, for this video we are going to explore some of the powers of smart objects and how you can use them to apply all sorts of effects to multiple groups of photos. So for example, say you have a specific style that you want to apply to a whole bunch of photos, but you don't want to do it over and over again for each photo. I'm going to show you how you can do that using smart objects. So first I'm going to open up an image. So I'm going to open up in this Smart Objects image, I'm going to open up image 1 and open that up as a JPEG. Now, this is just a regular JPEG image, so what I want to do is convert this to a smart object. So I'm going to right-click, go to Convert to Smart Object, and I'll get that little badge right there. Now, you can also do File Open as Smart Object, but that is not going to work for this. There are certain properties that are a little different. So just open it as a JPEG, right-click, and convert it to a smart object. All right, so now we can do all sorts of things to this photo that would be destructive in a different scenario if this wasn't a smart object. So a lot of those things that we can do are found in the filter gallery. There are filters we can apply, there are blurs that we can apply, and this camera raw filter is really nice. It allows you to do a lot of stuff as far as editing contrast and color and tonal range and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to click on Camera Raw Filter. And we're going to get this dialog, which if you've ever used Lightroom or Adobe Bridge, this is going to look pretty familiar. This is the Camera Raw editing interface from Adobe Bridge. They've just integrated it into Photoshop, so it's kind of nice. So I can apply, I can affect the exposure, contrast, all this kind of stuff. I want to take the contrast up a little bit to get kind of a high contrast image. The exposure, I think I'll leave as is. Shadows, you can bump up just a touch if you want. Clarity, I'm going to take up quite a bit because it gives it sort of almost an HDR effect with kind of there's really sharp edges. Vibrance, I'm actually going to take down a little bit so it gets kind of a desaturated feel. Saturation, I'll do the same thing. So we've taken a lot of the color out, we've bumped up some of the contrast. That looks pretty good. All right, so now clicking through here, there are a bunch of other things you can do, which by the way, this grayscale, HSL grayscale, this is a great way to convert your images to black and white because it gives you a lot more control over the dark and light areas, but that's another lesson. I'm going to click on Effects and add a little bit of grain just to get sort of a kind of a dirty grain kind of effect. And then I want to add a vignette. So this post-crop vignette, I'm going to click and drag over to the left, and you'll see I get this nice vignette, the dark edges effect. So that looks pretty good like that. I'm pretty happy with that effect, so I'm going to click OK. And you're going to see that it's applied to our image. However, it's non-destructive, so we actually haven't done anything to the image. We've just added a filter to it. And this is, if we don't like what we've done, we can always just double-click where it says Camera Raw Filter. It's going to open that back up again, and we can adjust our settings and click OK. We can also, by clicking on this, adjust the opacity or the blend mode. All right, and we can also mask certain parts of that if we don't want that effect all the way across the board. In this case, I do. So now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to apply a blur this time. So I'm going to go to Blur Gallery, and these are relatively new. These specific blurs came out a few versions ago. So I'm going to click on Tilt Shift. They all work a little differently, so you can find tutorials online. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on how each one works. This specific Tilt Shift blur, the way that this works is it blurs the edges and leaves the middle sharp. So for example, this part in the middle there's no blur. This part right here is where the transitions to blur, and then this part is full blur outside the dotted line. So I can grab each one of these lines and choose where they are, how sharp that transition is. So in this case, I want the middle of the image to be pretty clear and just the edges to be kind of blurred. Now this circular thing, this is actually the level of blur. So if I take it all the way up, you'll see it gets really blurry. I kind of liked it right around where it was, right around 17 or so, just so it's a pretty subtle effect. And then if you bring your cursor in between these lines, you can actually tilt where that blur takes place. But I kind of like the straight across blur. So that looks good. There's some other options you have over here, but I'm going to click OK, and that blur is applied. All right, again, totally non-destructive. And if I decide I don't like it, like That, to me, that looks maybe like too much blur almost. I can double click back the blur gallery. It's going to bring it back up. And I can take the blur down just a little bit and then click OK. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's apply one more thing. Let's try a filter. So I'm going to go to Filter, open up the Filter gallery, and there's all sorts of different things. I want to do something pretty crazy. So I am going to click on Neon Glow. Now yours might look different based on your foreground and background color. You can see I have cyan and yellow as my foreground and background color, so this is what I get for neon. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to apply that, and that's just, it's a bit much. So now I'm going to double click on this filter gallery thing, and I'm going to take the opacity down to about, I don't know, 40% or so, which gives it kind of a nice color there. And then I'm going to play with the blending mode. I'm going to try taking that to overlay. Nice. So it gives it sort of a blue, bluish tint, but it's not overpowering like the full-on effect. So click OK. You can kind of toggle these on and off if you want to see what you've done with each specific effect. Or you can turn them all off at the same time by coming up here and clicking that eyeball. So it's really nice, completely non-destructive. All right, so this is a good effect. Now let's say we want to apply this to a lot of other photos as well. Or maybe something that we're going to have photos down the line where we need to apply this. We're going to get into some automation features in Photoshop later in the semester, but for now, we're going to use this smart object as sort of a template. All right, so we're going to go to Save As. We're going to save this as SO underscore template. You see I already had one in here. PSD is what you want, Photoshop document. And click Save. It's going to say Replace. Yours won't say that. It'll give me this Maximize Compatibility. I'm going to click OK. All right, so here's my PSD file. I can close this, open it back up. All this information is going to be here. The nice thing about smart objects, as I mentioned, they serve as sort of containers to protect the image that's inside them. But what that means is you can actually switch out images with the smart object layer. So what you can do is double click on this thumbnail, the smart object thumbnail, and it's going to open up a separate file. If you look up here at your tabs, you'll see we have our template, and then you have layer0.psb. All right, this PSB works with smart objects, and so this file is connected to this file. So anything we do here is going to be applied to our template. So in this case, I want to bring in a new image. So I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to go ahead and open all three of these images. All right, and now all I have to do is drag them in. Now, first of all, I want to save this as a JPEG because this is one finished image that I like. All right, I should have done this before, but I didn't think about it. So I'm going to go to Save As. We're going to make this SO edited 1. All right, we're going to save it as a JPEG, and you can save it in the same folder if you want to. SO edited 1 JPEG. It'll ask for image options at 11 quality. It's 700 kilobytes. That's fine. So I'm going to click OK. All right. Now, I still have this PSB file open. So now I'm going to go to image 2, and I'm just going to click and drag this whole image over to my layer 0 PSB. And it should be the same size. I sized them earlier for you. So I'm just going to position it right there and say OK. I don't have to flatten or anything. I just basically hit the X to close this PSB file. It's going to say, do you want to change it? And I say, yes, save it. And now, let's go to our image. Ah, look at that. So all we've done, we've changed the contents of this smart object, but all of these filters are still there. So now if I wanted to tweak anything, I could go back into these blur galleries. For example, if I wanted to change the positioning of the blur, I could do that. And it won't let you see filters that are on top of it. But in this case, I kind of like the way it looks as is. So, perfect. So I'm going to go Save As. And I'm going to choose Edited 2. So SO underscore Edited 2. I'm going to choose JPEG from the Format menu and save that in the same folder. 11 quality is fine. Click OK. All right. So now, I can close this image 2 that I had. All right, so I still have 2 more images that I want to drop in here. but it's really quick and easy with a Smart Object template. So now again, I just double click on this. It opens up this PSB file. So go to image 3. You just have to kind of keep track. The tricky part is keeping track of where your PSB file is and what you're bringing into it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to click on this image, bring it over to my PSB, drag down, and plop it in there right on top of it. And you'll see that you can still see these other images, so I'm actually not doing anything destructive right here. I close the PSB file, hit save, go back over to my template, look at that. All right, now in this case, you know, I like the effect the way it is. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. We'll call this one Edited 3. Choose JPEG from the drop-down. Hit OK. Always check your file size. It's still under 1 megabyte, so that's fine. So click OK. I can close this image now. Back in my template, my PSD file, not PSB, PSD. I'm going to double click to open up that PSB file. You can see the 3 layers. I have one more image, so I'm going to click on image 4, click and drag it into the PSB file, drop it down, reposition it, and close it. Hit save, and now you'll see that the same thing is applied. So just by creating this effect one time, it allows us to create a template with Smart Objects, so we can just keep on dropping in images and then adjusting them as we need. If I wanted to change the blur or the settings in the camera raw or the filter, anything of that, we can totally do that without a whole lot of problems. So I'll go to File, Save As, finally. We'll save this as Edited 4, JPEG, and leave it like that. All right, so and we could continue doing this as long as we wanted to. And I would, you know, if I like this effect, I would save this PSD file as a template that I could open up at any time in the future and use. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to take a bunch of JPEGs and create one PDF from Photoshop, which is what I'm going to have you submit work whenever we have all these multiple files. And then next week, we're going to look at some even more powerful things you can do with Smart Objects.